Shadow character log, case file Jungle Doc. In the show Lost, Jack Shepard is the main character. He plays the role of our hero. The good doctor runs through the jungle, taking on polar bears, monsters, and more. And he still finds time to patch up and check in on his patients. Jack seems like the type of person you would expect to take charge of a group. Probably because he is a doctor, when Jack first communicated with the other survivors, you could see his bedside manner. Jack will need both his bedside manner and his directness to deal with all the different personalities of the survivors. Jack has an aura about him that makes you feel like you can trust him. And when he speaks, he seems to have such conviction in his words that almost anyone will think he got the right answers. Jack's main goal is the survival of his fellow survivors and getting off the island. In the aftermath of the crash, Jack steps up as the default leader of the group of survivors. Despite his being reluctant to be the leader, the survivors just start rallying around Jack naturally. Jack's being a doctor made him almost irreplaceable in the group. Using his medical knowledge, he would treat injuries and make sure everyone's health stayed up. The survivors were naturally drawn to Jack and embraced him as their go-to person for direction. Jack is very much a man of science. He serves as the antithesis of the man of faith John Locke. Jack starts to have issues. Jack begins thinking he is hallucinating because he keeps seeing his dead father in the jungle. Jack's disbelief of the mystical elements of the island starts to fade when he finds his father's coffin, but it is empty. This was one of the moments that shook Jack's mental state. Even after seeing other strange events on the island, Jack would try to find a way to explain it with science. More and more Jack would have to come to terms with the island being something that science can't explain. Jack may be somewhat of a control freak, which might explain why he would have trouble accepting the more supernatural elements of the island. You might even say Jack's story is about a man learning to let go, starting to believe in destiny, and eventually finding his faith in the unseen.
Jack is compassionate and has a desperate drive to save people. Jack is brave and fearless. He will not hesitate to rush into danger to help someone in need, even if it might cause harm to himself. He also is able to inspire courage in others, like when he first meets Kate. He taught Kate the counting trick, which he used to overcome fear, which she later used. Jack is able to bring order to the group when emotions are through the roof, and in dangerous situations. If he sees a stranger in need, he'll help first and ask questions later. A lot of the time Jack will make a decision that is unpopular with the rest of the group. Jack will even give aid or make a deal with the group's enemies if he thinks it will be for the greater good. Jack at times can be overconfident and make promises that he can't keep. It's that doctor in him that makes him think he can fix any problem. Jack has a hard time letting things go. Even if the situation is hopeless, like if a person is going to die no matter what, Jack won't stop trying to save them. Jack is a character that never gives up. Jack has great organizational and communication skills. Jack took it upon himself to make many decisions for the survivors. He was the character who found the caves that allowed the survivors to have fresh water and shelter. Later, when the group split, one group lived on the beach and one in the caves. Jack was the leader of the cave dwellers. From the very beginning, Jack knew that being on an island with no rules or laws, they needed to build a community. This would ring true with his famous speech, "We either live together or die alone." Jack and Locke's relationship is parallel to that of Jacob and his brother. I think Jack's greatest strength was that he was able to adapt and was willing to accept new information and update his beliefs. The fact that Jack was eventually able to not just rely on science and physical evidence and started to believe in things that he could not see, prove, or control was his greatest talent. Even though such belief went against everything he was taught, and against the way he lived his life, he was still able to adapt to change. Jack has the ability to take in new information and act on it, on the fly.
Jack early on struggled to cope with demands made by the castaways. Jack would often bump heads with John Locke. A lot of the time Locke would provide some advice for Jack's leadership. Most of the time Locke's advice was good advice, but Jack was too stubborn to hear it. This is a pattern in which Jack makes bad decisions. Jack is constantly hounded by the thought of his father telling him that he does not have what it takes. Even as good and skilled as Jack is, his self-confidence is damaged by his father. He carries a lot of doubt and guilt. Jack is stubborn to the point where he can't let things go and has a tendency to overvalue his own ability and skills. Jack Shepard may be the leader of the group, and the one they look to make the decisions, but that doesn't mean that they're good decisions. Some of Jack's decisions can be impulsive, and Jack can sound condescending at times. This leads to him butting heads with the secondary leaders of the group, like Locke and Sayid. Jack and Sawyer are just natural opposites. Jack spent seasons fighting with Locke, to try and prove John Locke wrong about everyone being on the island for a reason, that it is their destiny to be on the island. Like the time when Jack and Locke have one of the best scenes in Season 2, about pushing a button. This scene really defines both their characters. You will see how both of them see the world in completely different ways. He has the skill, but being a doctor is ultimately going to destroy him, because of Jack's desperate need to save people no matter what. When he can't save everyone, he has trouble coping with that. Jack's heart is in the right place most of the time, it is just the actions he takes can go bad really quickly. Jack will take the ends will justify the means line of thinking most of the time. Jack may have a habit of making bad decisions and misjudging situations, but no one will ever say, he doesn't try his best to do the right thing. He's just doing the right thing at the wrong times a lot. Jack constantly needs to try and fix everything, that falls right into place with him being a doctor. He tries to fix things that are broken and sometimes things that are not broken and don't need or want to be fixed. Jack is a man who needs to have at least some control over the things around him. If he can't control it, he feels that his actions can affect and change it.
Jack Shepard may have a lot of frustrating qualities, but he is still a good character. The physical and emotional journey he goes on throughout the series is an interesting one. To see where Jack's character starts off in the early part of the show, and then see where he ends up is great TV. Even with all of Jack's flaws, they don't cripple him as a character. Most of his weaknesses could be considered strengths in certain situations. Jack was the main character in one of the most groundbreaking shows of the era. Lost was a show with a massive cast of characters. Jack may have been outshined by a few other characters in the show, but he was still able to stand out in an ocean of unique characters. Lost had a fantastic cast. It would be easy for any character to just be a cog in the machine of all the storylines that were going on at the time. The fact that Jack for the most part was front and center shows his importance to the show and to the fans. Lost might not have lasted as long as it did without Jack, so I grant him the character rank of a prominent character. What do you think about Jack as a character? Put your thoughts in the chat. Please like and subscribe. It's back to the shadows. Thanks for watching.